What is going on, guys? We are back with Babs. Babs, having a good time, having a good day. Hope y'all are having a good day too. So, I'm gonna do a little video on wedge play, all things wedges, full shots, top spin shots, punch shots, all that good stuff. Going through the bag with each wedge. So, the 100, the 75, and the 60, just kind of going through them all. If you don't have the 75 and you have the 80, or you're thinking about getting the 75 but wondering, how to make up for the distance variance, we're going to cover that in this video. So, here we go. All right, so put myself on Pebble hole number 1, practice mode, obviously, so it's just 12 greens. Got a pretty decent crosswind here, and calculating this shot, I get about 55.5 yards, call it 56 yards. So for me, that would be 92, 93% on the 60 wedge. But, the thing about this green that you have to understand is that it slopes front to back. And if I could kind of touch this and click at the same time, that'd be great. Awesome. Look at that. Fucking skills. So this is the pitch mode, obviously. And all this blue stuff is uphill. And obviously all this red stuff is downhill. And if you look at this, the green is basically sloped in this manner. Left to right, back to front. And this is 12 greens. So if I were to hit this at 92, 93% with the 60 wedge, you'd think, oh, it's a wedge shot. It's probably going to be a good shot. So let's go ahead and hit that 93% and see what happens. 93%, ball lands 53 yards, but it spins back 3 yards. Why is that? Because of the amount of spin that the 60 wedge has and the shape of this green and the fact that we're on 12 green speeds. Is that what you think was going to be a great shot, it turned out to not be a great shot. So how can you make up for that? Well, some people will say, oh, I'll just hit it harder. I'll hit it 95%. Oh, that misting sucked. And so that would be one option, is hitting it harder. Go long and then bring it back. And now you have an 8-foot shot. Or you could add a little top spin to it. And I'm going to try and keep the aim all the same. Hopefully I can misting the same. And hit it 93%. So by adding top spin, I can reduce how much spin back the ball has without changing the power. Yeah, the ball's going to go a little longer, but it's not going to come back as much. Otherwise you could also hit a full top spin punch. If you want in this situation, your aim would be slightly less, but you could possibly do that. And now you'd be below the hole. You're not as close, but it's an option. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Naturally, I would choose the slight top spin full shot, or you could hit, a punch with the 75 wedge, which is another option. So let's just go ahead and hit the punch with the 75 wedge and show you how much spin back we get with this. Slower meter speed, not much spin back at all. It sort of hits and sticks. So that's kind of the difference when you're trying to improve your wedge game. Is just because you calculate a certain distance doesn't mean it's going to actually go that distance. You have to be aware of what the ball is going to do when it hits the green, and what the green is showing that it might indicate doing. So it hits, spins back 3 yards, and that doesn't do us any good. So keep that in mind. You got to play with, these clubs in certain situations. Understand what you're getting into when you're approaching a green like this, so you don't leave yourself with a stupid 12-foot putt when you should only have a 5-foot putt, just by simply adding 20-something% spin like that. But not even changing the power. I'll still hit it 93%. Just add the top spin. And now the ball hits and stays there. You're right here. You're very close to the hole. giving yourself a chance just by adding the top spin. So don't be afraid thinking the ball is going to go way back here and stay back here. That's not how this green is sloped. Now there are some other greens that might do that, so you have to be aware and learn your course management. All right, so let's go to another hole. All right, hole number 2. We are on PGA number 4. Not a very difficult hole, pretty straightforward. So if we calculate this, we get roughly 46 yards, and we have some options. You know, some people would think, okay, let's automatically jump on this punch train and hit this in the 44 to 46 range with the punch. So I could hit that roughly 93% on the punch, get a heartbeat, hit and stick, and that's basically what a punch would do. It'll hit, take one hop, and stay there. But if you haven't charted your wedges down to a certain percentage, you can actually do more than just hit a punch. I can hit this at 46. Let's leave the flag in. And maybe increase my odds of holing out without having to hit the punch and still get the same kind of effect. So 2 different types of shots achieving the same results is what we're looking for in this whole scenario. Now let's back the ball up a little and let's go into a range where you say something a little farther. So now we have 60 yards, and maybe you're not comfortable with the meter speed on the 60 wedge simply because it's faster. You know, obviously it being, oh, that's the 100, don't want that right here. So it's 3.5 compared to 4.5, which is the 75 wedge. So if I'm going to calculate this, I would get roughly, you know, 59 yards, 98%. So again, I have 2 options. I can hit this 98% with a faster meter speed and put it in the ballpark, and it spins back because it is 12 greens. Or I could reverse that and hit a punch with the 75 wedge at 92, 93 yards. And it rolls forward and almost goes in. So it's 2 different options. Personally, I would have chosen that shot, the punch, because why? I'm underpowering it. So my apex is lower, utilizing the tailwind to, let's see if we can come out and show you this. So basically what I'm creating with this is I'm increasing my odds of a hole out. By landing the ball here, I can then create a lower ball flight so the ball will roll towards the hole, rather than what the 60 wedge did was land here and spin away from the hole. That's 2 different options. So yeah, give yourself the opportunity to, you know, create these shots by simply choosing one that's different than what you normally would, getting out of your comfort zone, learning these shots. So it hits and rolls forward, and that's how you increase your odds of holing out. And that's how you get better at certain shots like this. And then we'll back it up even again so we can kind of show you that in-between number on the 75. So now we have 71 yards. And I'm looking at this and I say, okay, 71 yards minus 11, that looks like it's 92. So that's not entirely difficult situation. I want to put myself in the 80 range, preferably, just to give you guys some indication of how you can do this. All right, 83 is good. We got 83, leave it all the way it is. So we have 81, 82 yards, so forth and so on. You could do a full topspin 75 wedge, landing it short again and letting it roll towards the hole. That's an option. Landing it and then making it go forward, which it doesn't really do because topspin on certain greens doesn't really go forward. Or you can hit a punch. But the thing about the punch with this 100 wedge is you have to be careful, and I'll hit it normally, just to give you an idea of what happens when you don't play the punch properly with the 100, because it does release. So I want to show you what not to do. Hits and rolls away. hits and rolls away. That's landing at 4 yards short and rolls away. But how do I counteract that? Like I did on Pebble number 1, add a little backspin to it. Most people say no on backspin with the wedges, but in this situation, I want the backspin. So by hitting that little backspin plus a little more power, now I get a heartbeat. So I basically reduce how much release is happening. But what you can't do is add that little bit of backspin and hit the same amount of power that you calculated. If I were to hit the same amount of power that I calculated, this is what would happen. The ball would come up too short. So you have to compensate. You need balance. You have to be able to say, okay, so my punch says hit it 96%. It's slightly uphill, and I have a tailwind, and this club is known for releasing like crazy. So add some backspin, but compensate that with 2% more power. And you get the ball right where you need it to be. So that's how you make those things work in your favor, and how you utilize your wedge game to raise your game and get better scores. All right, boys, here we are. We are on hole number 1, Wolf Creek, and we got this shot here. And we're going to say, okay, what are my options? I could hit a punch. I could hit a full shot. I could hit a full backspin punch. If I were to hit a flat punch in this situation, we're going to look at this as like, where do I not want to be? Well, I don't want to be long. That's one thing I don't want to be. So I could hit a flat punch, put myself even with the flag, have a relatively fairly straightforward putt, such as so. I could hit a full backspin punch, and again, same aim, all the same good stuff. Oh, might want to actually put it on punch. A little more control, a little lower shot, be below the hole, or you could hit a full shot. And I have mine charted at 75% for 42 yards. So with this speed, if you're going to hit a choke down shot, kind of want to indicate what will happen. The wind tends to knock it down the more you choke down. So in this instance, I can't hit it what I charted at 42 yards. I have to hit it a little harder to compensate for that. So I'm going to add a little more to it just to compensate, and then you get a heartbeat. So 3 different shots for equal opportunity type situation. Vice versa, if we backed ourselves up a little bit for more of a full shot, then we'll kind of show you what happens, which is similar. What in the world? That's not far enough. That's not far enough. Come on now. There we go. That's better. So now, let's say you came up really short and you're in this ballpark over here. So now we're looking at maybe a 98% wedge shot. Again, same as Pebble number 1. The shape of the greens matter. So if I hit this 98% with a misting, no heartbeat, the ball lands and rolls back. I landed 56 yards, but I rolled back 3 yards. And you say, well, crap, I thought I had a good shot. Add that little bit of topspin. Again, same aim, same misting. 98% with that little bit of topspin. Now you get a heartbeat because the ball lands long and stays there. Stays there. And that's 33% topspin. There's not a whole lot of difference in yardage. And we're not trying to gain yards. We're trying to use the slope of the green to give ourselves a better shot. Vice versa, if you want to break out the punch. 93% punch. Your aim's going to be about half a grid less. Similar situation, getting over the hill. You can hit a punch and leave yourself below the hole for a fairly easy putt because the ball releases 2 yards forward. So that's another option. So get accustomed to what you're doing with your shots and learn the shapes of the greens in this situation. See, there's not a whole lot of sideways movement here, but if I switch to the vertical dots, they're literally moving back to front. As you can see, the vertical dots are all originating up here, and they're moving precisely this direction like this. Every single one of them. So any shot that you land in this area had this tendency to spin all the way back down if you hit a flat wedge. So do be careful of that when you are approaching certain shots like this on faster greens with flat wedges, particularly the 64 wedge in general. It will bite back and come at you. All right, here we are, hole number 6, Wolf Creek. So looking at this, we're saying this is roughly 39 yards, okay? So if I were to hit this flat, 39 yards would be about 72%. If I were to hit a punch, and let's say we're looking at 39 yards, it'd be 85% on the punch shot. So let's hit 85%. Hits and releases forward, and you got a great shot. So that's one option. Again, if you want to hit a flat shot, like so, you can hit a flat shot. Same heartbeat, and that one rolls forward. The difference is that one is a hop and stop situation, whereas one releases. So you want to ask yourself, what does my gameplay consist of? Does my gameplay consist of a situation where I hit the ball that has a lower apex, it hits and stops? See, that 3 yards is all in the air. That's a bouncing 3 yards. Or do I want to chart this in a manner where I can hit a full choke down shot and possibly do that? See, improve my odds of holing out. So instead of the ball bouncing per se, like so, where it kind of hits in this situation here, takes it up, lops over, and then bounces next to the hole and stops is one direction. But a full choke down shot hits and then rolls. There's no air to it. So you increase your odds of holing out. Two different shots, two different responses and reactions, but one has a better chance of holing out than the other. So it's up to you on how you want to develop your game and use both shots to your advantage. All right, these next two type video shots are going to be in relation to what I see most people doing here. And so what I've seen most people do is they're on hole number 9, Wolf Creek. And obviously I got my apparel on, so it's not going to go the same distance, but I'll try and choke down a little bit just to make it close to what most people do. So they think I got to hit a full driver on this hole, and then I get up here. And then I say to myself, okay, got 42 yards, up 17 with a 19-mile-an-hour tailwind. And you ask yourself, you know, what am I going to do? Well, if I want to hit a punch, because let's say you haven't charted your wedge shots lower than, 80%. You're going to look at this as a punch like, okay, this might be a 42, 43% type punch. Well, you're on 12 greens, you're elevated, and you have a tailwind, so trying to hit a punch gets tricky. So let's just, for all intents and purposes, say we're going to hit this at 43% punch, slight aim, like so. That's what happens. You land 3 yards short, but because you're uphill and you have a tailwind, your ball tends to kick forward a lot. Let's say you miscalculated this and say it told you you have a 45-yard punch. And with the 45, looking at the chart, that's 95%. So similar, same thing. We're looking at this like, okay, now I'm going to hit this 95%. And you go much farther. And you say, well, damn, that sucks. Because now my punch is a lower flying club. It's hitting the green and it's skipping forward because of where you left yourself on the tee. Now, if I were to hit this as a flat shot, because I've charted my clubs for this, let me hit this as a flat shot without the punch. Wait, no, sorry. wrong power scale. All right, let's go back to that. Flat shot, normal shot, no punch. Let's leave the flag in. So this we're looking at is a flat shot right here. See, and that's where you land 42 yards, but you're still in trouble. So how can I counteract that if I need to put down a little more? Say, how can I make this work to my favor? Well, you have to learn to play the ball short in order to work this in your favor, and that's where the choke downs comes in. So that's where I hit it really short. See, so I landed that 4 yards short, and it rolled up 5 yards. And that's what is the benefit of charting your clubs down farther than 80%. And it's not hitting a punch. The whole idea behind this is that when you're on the tee, don't hit a full driver. Dumb down the driver to 92, 93%. That way you leave yourself in this ballpark. Okay, so now you have more of a full wedge shot into this green. And now you have a lot more room to work with rather than trying to say, oh crap, you know, I have a punch shot, but how do I make this work with this elevation, fast greens, and tailwind? Because I didn't chart my clubs down to 70%, so I have no idea what to hit. Well, now that you have a full shot, you can just go ahead and hit this whatever you calculated for your full shots. And you'd be right on the money. But that's the tip that I'm trying to display when you have this situation, is when you're on the tee and you see this tailwind, even when you don't have a peril, don't get driver happy and hit it as far as possible down the fairway, leaving yourself with a really stupid shot, especially on fast greens with a tailwind. And next thing you know, what was supposed to be an easy birdie turned into a par because you were left in a position where you didn't have the information that you needed. So dumb down the driver, leave yourself a full shot, and that'll put you in a good position. All right, and final hole, guys, I wanted to cover was Pebble Beach number 14. So I'm on the short tees right now. And we got the front hole, which is the one that, you know, we most often play. So what I'm looking at in this situation is, this isn't technically a tailwind, but because I'm on short tees, I can put myself in a position where I would normally end up if I had a tailwind. And that's kind of the basis on what I wanted to go over in this very last video. So what I see people do, and this is probably not an accurate location of where people normally would end up, and I can't seem to get around. Let's see if I can turn this around. So normally this would be in a situation over in this area right in here. And so take this out, take that out, maybe a little farther. Pitch me back this way a little bit. Okay. So let's just say we had, you know, a 16-mile-an-hour tailwind in this situation. And people would say, okay, maybe I'll try and go, you know, for the green. Well, what happens if you don't reach the green? Where do you end up? Most likely you'll end up somewhere in this area right here. And you say, okay, well, then what happens? You have this hill in the way. So why would you want to put yourself in that position if you're trying to punch or flop over this hill? And I'll just go ahead and hit this ball up there. So this is where some people would normally end up if they're trying to go for the green and don't make it. And so you're trying to say, okay, well now what are you left with doing? What do you feel comfortable doing? What do you have charted? All these different questions come into play. You know, do I hit a punch? Sure, I can try and hit a punch. Punch in this situation would be about 62%. So I hit a 62% punch. Ball lands 3 yards short, but because of this hill right here, it kicks forward. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that hill is there. This hill right here. If I can get a different freaking view, that'd be great. There we go. So this hill right here is a front to back hill, meaning that all of this is high side, and then it just shoots straight downward like this. So you just hit a punch that landed here, but then rolled all the way 5 yards away. So now you have a 7-foot putt for birdie, and you put yourself out of position. So that's one option. Let's say you go back to where we were, and we're gonna look at maybe, oh, well, maybe I'll flop. Well, do you know your flop numbers? You know, not many people that I'm aware of know their flop numbers. So let's say you try and hit a flop on the sand wedge. Come somewhere in this area, flop it up like this. And I'm hitting a flop, and I land 1 yard short. And again, I get kicked off that hill. And that's simply because you're leaving yourself in this very stupid position of right here. Is what we don't want to do. So how do you counteract that? You have to leave yourself farther out in this area. And of course, this is not technically going to be the area where you leave yourself, but I'm just going to show you another position where I see a lot of people end up. They'll end up somewhere in this area, 36 yards. Okay, so you say, well, I'll try and do another punch at 36 yards. Should be fine, right? Headwind, ball will hold up, all that good stuff. Make sure we take into account the elevation. Let's do a punch. And now you get that nice bite, but it kicks 3 yards forward. Well, that's a bit of a lucky bite that you were able to get off that front section and get the ball to hold. Will you always be that lucky? Maybe not. You know, that's something that you have to be comfortable with doing. So as I did before, you know, when I was way back here, let's say this is where I was before, way back here. This is how I would suggest people playing this hole if they were uncomfortable with their distances and all that stuff. So let's say you have a tailwind and you're wondering, you know, I don't want to end up here. I don't want to end up too close going over the bunker. So the distance would be roughly the flag minus what a full shot would be. So a full shot would be with the 60 wedge, say anywhere between 55 and 60 yards. So if that's 300, I want to aim myself somewhere in this area and come up short. That's the trick behind giving yourself a decent opportunity to put yourself in a position where you can come up short like this, 57 yards, very simple shot, and you don't have to worry about trying to hit any kind of hill that's coming over this green. Any kind of hill right here that's coming over this green. Why is that? Again, because this is all slope. This is a hill right there, and it slopes right here. It goes straight down this way. And if you get one bad bounce, you could end up with a 10, 12, 13-foot putt for birdie on a hole that's supposed to be birdieable no matter what. So leave yourself a little room right here in this open section for a full wedge shot so that you don't have to get into a bind with trying to flop or punch or pitch over the hill on this area out here. So what would this be for me? Oh, this would be could be a top spin 60 wedge. Go ahead and throw a top spin on it, a little bit of aim, hit and stick, ball's right by the hole. Very simple, nothing dramatic, nothing crazy. Just making sure that you're understanding your course management and you're understanding that leaving yourself with plenty of room right here in the fairway to get up and over this hill will allow you to stay here without kicking off the side of the hill. So don't always go for the green unless, of course, you know you're going to actually make it onto the green or off the green. Some people don't feel comfortable with hitting a 40-foot putt over here. So you got to understand what is your best bet scenario. Take the trouble out of the equation and leave yourself with a very simple wedge shot. So hope you guys enjoy this little wedge series. If y'all have any questions, as always, shoot me a message. And I'll see y'all soon. All right, boy. Have a great week and take care. Be y'all.